I wasn't even going to publish this video, but I want to keep you guys up to date on the progress on the Philips 880 with the, well, you remember the transport chip that was kind of stuck in that side. We're going to put a different chip in there and see if it fixes it. Now, if we remember from before, when I got this thing here, somebody had worked on this and they basically stuck it. Well, they cut the chip out. Okay, let's cut through the bullshit here. They didn't actually remove the chip. They actually just cut the pins off, and then I guess the guy changed his mind and he decided he was just going to solder it back in place. But because he had already cut off half the pins, he put a bunch of jumper wires in and sent it back to the guy, telling him that they tried changing the chip and it didn't fix it, and they gave him another chip in a bag saying, here's the dead chip that we pulled out, and this didn't fix the unit. So I'm still working on this based on the diagnosis of a previous tech, but I'm trying to clean up his mess. So I'm going to remove all these stupid pieces of wire, clean up the board, and I'm going to put the other chip in that was installed or was supplied in the plastic bag. Now, I've been told this chip is no good, so I don't know. Maybe it's bad, maybe it's good, but I don't trust it. But we're going to try it because I don't have another chip to replace it, and I haven't had much luck finding one at this point. We're on the lookout for a donor deck right now, but at this point, I don't have one. So I'm going to put the other chip B, as they call it. There's two chips in the transport. There's the A and the B. I'm going to put the other one in, the one that was packed in a plastic bag. We're going to put it in this thing and see whether this unit fixes it, and more importantly, is my symptom the same? But first things first, let's get the old chip out. As you can see, I've been carefully removing all the wires, and, well, you'll see when the chip comes out how bad this last shop was and how he did. You can see, he just bent the chip up on edge there. But those are actually the original pins, and he just soldered them back down. He cut the chip out, and the original pins from the chip are still through the board. He didn't even remove them. So I'm going to have to remove the chip. I'm going to have to pull out all the individual little pins, clean up the board, and then we'll mount a new chip in it or mount the other one back. So now I'm going to remove the pins that were left in because, again, the prior tech that worked on this thing, he didn't even unsolder. He just cut them off. I mean, it's like, this is ridiculous. I wish I could name the name of the shop, but it's a well-known shop in Vancouver that's been there for about 50 years, and they've been around forever. And I'm not going to say their name, but they've been around in Vancouver itself, not the outlying areas, but actually in Vancouver. So anybody that knows the service shops that have been in Vancouver for about 50 years probably knows which one I'm referring to, but they were a big one that was downtown for many years, just on the other side of the Burrard Street Bridge, if I remember correctly. I actually did business with them once. I bought a very expensive camera from them for about $10,000. But anyway, that's how their guy left this thing. And so we're going to spend a bit of time cleaning up the board and doing this the right way, and see whether putting this chip that they gave back saying it was no good, we'll try it and see whether we get anywhere on this one. Not holding my breath at this point, but they got to do something, right? So the guy that owns this unit is he wants it repaired pretty bad, and he's going to pull out all the stops to try and find the parts for this old antique machine, which I don't really blame him because these were a pretty good machine. So as you can see, nothing fancy is needed here. You don't need a fancy desoldering pump or anything. If you're careful, you can take these things out with just a little bit of good old desolder braid and not damage the board. You just have to work at it slowly and be kind of careful, and this board will clean up real nice and won't have any issues with it. Here I'm just going to use the leg of a resistor just to make sure that all the holes are clear and that there's no solder sticking in here that could hang up and cause one of my pins to bend, because the last thing you want to do is bend over a pin when you're trying to insert it in the circuit board, especially a chip that's been pulled from something else, because the legs on it probably aren't in great shape because they've already been pulled once. So going to make sure that everything's clear here, and then we'll install the new chip, or I should say the used chip. Now at this point, I don't know that it's the transport chip. I highly doubt that the transport chip is at fault. I think it's probably the 1541 DAC, just from the way the thing was behaving. But the fact that the other guy had all those long leads of wire going down to the board, that's going to cause timing problems with just the different lengths. So you can't have a chip mounted on its side like that. I mean, that's amateur hour. So whether this chip is any good or not, we'll find out pretty quick here. I think the chip probably is okay, but, well, maybe. We'll find out. Yeah, I know these things should be socketed, but if I had one, I'd put one in, because changing chips like this is a pain in the butt, especially if you don't know if this chip's going to fix it or not. Next time, eh? And no, I'm not hammering that chip hard. I'm just lightly tapping it just to lower the pins down into the actual holes on the board.
Okay. Looks like all my pins are through. Good. Let's tack that down.
Okay, as you can see, I got the same fault. I got no sound, just pop, click, pop. Disc is spinning. It's reading the disc. The counter is moving. It's not playing. I think it's the 1541 chip behind it, the one in the back with all the little yellow caps behind it. That's the DAC. I think that's more than likely the fault, is the DAC, not the digital filter. Although the digital filter certainly could cause this problem, but I think in this case it's the DAC. So the client brought me a donor deck to steal the transport chip from, because, hey, this is the one that the other guy said was bad, and well, I don't know the shape of it, right? So I've got a deck here that's got the two transport chips. Let's swap it out. Now, as you can see, this unit does have a transport problem because the motor is constantly spinning even though there's no disc in it. This does use a Phillips type of transport. There's the Phillips laser pickup assembly. And it does use a bunch of Phillips chips on here. I don't know that it's using the same chips that the other one uses. I'm going to have to take the other one apart and see whether we've got the same chips. These ones are socketed, whereas the Phillips one are not. But that's the project anyway, to see whether this thing's got the same chips in it that the other one does, and see whether we can make the Phillips work using parts from this unit. So of course, here's that Philips again. If you remember the last time you guys saw this thing, where I actually took that chip out that was sitting on the side, and I put the one in that was in a bag that was flagged as a defective chip. And the last guy that worked on it said that that chip was bad, and he took the chip out and he put the same chip back in because, as we saw, the pins were all cut off, and it was just, this was one that was sitting in a plastic bag that he gave back with the unit. I don't know what shape it is. Both that transport and this unit both use the same 2 chips. This is part of the transport chip for, that's your digital filter. And this one here is, I think this, I don't know what this chip is, I'll have to look it up, but it's, the 2 of them work together as part of the digital filter. And this one, of course, is the DAC. So what he wants me to do is he wants me to pull the transport chips out of the other one and replace the 2 transport chips if it's at fault. That's the project. The other ones are socketed, so they'll be easy to pull those out, but these ones are not. I'm going to have to unsolder these manually. We'll start with this one because this one is an unknown. I don't know whether this chip is any good or not. It was in a bag that said defective, so and I stuck it in the unit just because the one that was in there that someone had, well, this is not the original one that came out of this. So I'm going to cut through the chase here. We're going to unsolder this IC that I just put in on this one because it's an unknown whether this chip is any good or not. We're going to swap it over with the other one. So I don't think I need to show this part again. So we'll fast forward to the new chip and see whether we've made any progress on this unit at all. Or maybe we haven't made progress. But we're troubleshooting, and we're going to learn something. Okay, solder removed. Just going to lift the chip up here, get it out of the board. There we go. Okay, so that's this chip removed. And I don't see any damage to the traces here on the board. Now it's time to extract the other chip, which is socketed. Houston, we have a problem. That chip that I just changed, that I pulled out of the other one, guess what? That chip's bad because that's what the other player was doing. It was just constantly spinning. And I just pulled a bad chip out of the donor player and put it into this one. So that tells me that the chip that I pulled out of this one was probably not the fault with this unit because now it won't even spin. It would read the disc before. So that's where we stand on this one now. We know the problem is the DAC on this one and not the transport chips. They were fine. So got to find another transport chip and a DAC for this one. There definitely will be a part 3. Thanks for watching.